The rejection came before the rain even had time to stop dripping from his jacket, and in that moment, the whole city felt like it had turned its back on him. Armin Hale stood outside the glass tower with his shoulders slumped, clutching a worn leather briefcase like it was the last proof that he still mattered. Inside that building, he had just failed the interview that was supposed to change everything. Outside, the daylight felt too bright, too unforgiving, as if the world wanted him to see every crack in his hope. Before the story goes any further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories that remind us why humanity still matters, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindora Life. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Armin was a single father, a man who had learned to measure time in school pickup hours and late-night laundry cycles rather than dreams. Ever since his wife passed away 2 years earlier, life had become a careful balance of survival and love. His mornings began with packing lunches and tying shoelaces, his afternoons filled with part-time work that barely paid the rent, and his nights haunted by the fear of what would happen if he ever failed his son. Today's interview was supposed to be the turning point, the job that would finally give his child stability, safety, and a future that didn't feel so fragile. The interview room itself had been cold and spotless, sunlight pouring in through tall windows as if exposing every flaw. Armin had done his best, but exhaustion has a way of creeping into a person's voice. When asked about gaps in his resume, he spoke honestly about caregiving, about choosing his son over promotions, about nights spent at hospital beds instead of networking events. He saw the flicker in the interviewer's eyes, not cruelty, just hesitation. When the meeting ended, the polite smiles felt heavier than outright rejection. He knew before he stood up that he had failed. Now, walking away from the building in the middle of the day, Armin felt smaller than ever. Office workers passed him with confident strides, laughter echoing between the towers. He imagined his son waiting at home, asking if Daddy got the job, and the thought tightened his chest. The briefcase in his hands held nothing special, just old documents and memories of better times, but he gripped it as if letting go would mean losing the last piece of himself. Inside the building, something unexpected stirred. The interviewer, a woman named Maria Cross, sat staring at her notes long after Armin had left. She was known for her sharp instincts and high standards, yet something about that man unsettled her. Not his skills, which were solid, but his honesty. In a world where candidates often hid behind polished answers, Armin had shown his life openly, scars and all. She remembered the way his eyes softened when he mentioned his son, the way his hands trembled slightly when he spoke about responsibility. It wasn't weakness she had seen, it was weight. Maria stood abruptly, daylight streaming through the corridor as she moved toward the windows. She spotted Armin below, walking slowly, head down, rainwater darkening his shoulders. A quiet voice inside her asked a question she had ignored for years: when did companies forget the value of character? Without fully thinking it through, she grabbed her coat and rushed out. Armin barely noticed footsteps behind him until someone called his name. He turned, startled, as Maria approached, breathless, her professional composure cracked by urgency. The city noise faded into the background as she looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a man who had given everything and still stood upright. She admitted that the interview scorecards did not reflect the kind of person he was. She spoke about resilience, about leadership forged through hardship, about a company that needed someone who understood responsibility beyond profit margins. The offer she extended was not perfect, not glamorous, but it was real. A probationary role, flexible hours, a chance to prove himself. Armin felt the world tilt, disbelief washing over him as sunlight broke through the clouds above. The rain had stopped completely now, and for the first time in months, he felt warmth without fear attached to it. That afternoon, as Armin walked home, the city looked different. The same streets felt lighter, the same buildings less intimidating. He imagined telling his son the news, imagined a future where bedtime stories were no longer overshadowed by worry. He understood that the job was just the beginning, but beginnings mattered. They were proof that endings were not always final. Weeks passed, and Armin poured himself into his work with quiet dedication. He arrived early, left late when needed, and never forgot why he was there. His colleagues noticed his humility, his willingness to help without seeking credit. Maria watched from a distance, certain she had made the right choice. In choosing him, she had also reclaimed a piece of her own humanity. The true moment of triumph came on a bright morning when Armin attended a company family day, his son's small hand wrapped around his own. Laughter filled the open courtyard, sunlight dancing across faces, and Armin realized that success was not about impressing strangers in glass rooms. It was about being present, about standing tall after being broken, about walking away from failure and still being worthy of someone running after you. If this story stirred something inside you, if it reminded you of your own struggles or someone you love, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with this video. Your interaction helps stories of hope reach hearts that desperately need them. Before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment below and share what this story made you feel, or tell us about a moment when someone gave you a second chance. As the daylight faded into a gentle afternoon glow, Armin sat beside his son, listening to him talk about school with unfiltered joy. The fear that once ruled his life had softened into gratitude. Somewhere in the city, a woman had chosen compassion over procedure, and because of that choice, a father's faith was restored. Sometimes, the most powerful interviews are not about what we say in a room, but who we are when we walk away, unaware that hope might be running after us.